Welcome, curious minds. Today, we're diving into a fascinating corner of the industrial world, maybe one you haven't thought much about, the graphite electrode billets market.
Right. And these billets, they're basically the essential starting point.
Exactly. They get made into those massive graphite electrodes for electric arc furnaces,
Yeah.
the ones critical for making steel and other metals.
Couldn't do a lot of modern manufacturing without them.
For sure. So we've got this detailed report. It's called the Graphite Electrode Billets Market, Global and Regional Outlook 2033. We're going to use it to see how things are growing globally, regionally, what the future looks like.
Yeah, our mission today is really to pull out the key insights from that report. We'll look at the money, the growth projections, sure, but also some, well, pretty surprising regional stories that show how global industry is shifting.
Totally. And just to give you a sense of the scale here, this market, it was already worth over $5.3 billion back in 2021.
And the projections show serious upward movement, like nearly doubling over the next decade or so.
Huge. So let's unpack it. Let's see what's really sparking growth around the world.
Okay.
All right, let's start big picture. Globally, this market isn't just ticking up, it's really transforming. Expected to nearly double in value. It's a key indicator, really, for industrial health worldwide.
Yeah, the numbers themselves are pretty striking.
In 2021, the market size was $5,353.3 million. But look ahead to 2033. It's expected to hit $10,691.7 million.
That's a massive leap.
It really is.
And what's really interesting there is the compound annual growth rate, the CAGR. It's 5.934%. So this isn't just some temporary bump, It's consistent, healthy growth year after year for over a decade.
Right, it points to real demand.
Exactly. Sustained demand, sustained investment in the industries that need these electrodes, mostly steel, the electric arc furnaces, but other high-temp processes too. It tells you global industrialization is still very much happening.
Okay, that global number is definitely strong. But like you said, the real interesting stuff, the deep dive, happens when we zoom in. Because that growth, it's not happening evenly everywhere. The story really changes depending on where you look. It's not one single tide lifting all boats.
That's exactly it. Which leads us to the key question, right? Are all regions growing at the same pace? Or are there specific hotspots really driving things? Are the mature markets doing something different?
Yeah, understanding why the numbers are what they are, that's crucial.
Absolutely. It shows you the bigger picture of how industry is evolving globally.
Okay, first stop, North America. An established player definitely holds a big slice of the pie. Sales revenue back in 2021 was $1,552.46 million, the forecast, up to $2,939.14 million by 2033.
So that's a TAGR of 5.328%. Solid, steady growth.
Steady is the word.
Yeah, North America, like you said, it's a mature market.
Yeah.
But it's still showing reliable expansion. Not the kind of explosive growth you might see elsewhere, but foundational. But dig into the individual countries and, well, you see some interesting differences in how fast they're growing. Suggest different things are happening internally, not just one continental trend.
Interesting. So the U.S. is the biggest chunk, obviously, but it sounds like Canada and Mexico are growing faster. Is that right?
Yeah.
What might be driving that? Specific industries, maybe?
That's exactly it. The United States, leads in volume, growing at a respectable 5.11% CAGR. It'll hit about 2,364.01 million by 2033.
Okay.
But Canada and Mexico, they're showing more acceleration. Canada's market is projected to hit $405.954 million by 2033. That's a higher CEG, 6.385%.
Right.
And Mexico also shows really strong growth, forecasted to reach 169.177 million by 2033 with a 6.011% CAGR.
So what's behind that difference?
Well, could be a few things. In Canada, maybe sustained demand from natural resources related manufacturing. For Mexico, its increasing role in North American supply chains. Think automotive, machinery, it's a big driver. Needs steel, needs these components.
That makes sense. It really shows how complex things are, even within one region. Okay, let's shift gears. Let's go where the energy is really surging. This is where it gets really interesting. The report calls Asia Pacific a key growth engine. And wow, the numbers back that up. It's the powerhouse for the whole market.
Definitely.
Started at 2,130.61 million in 2021, already the biggest region, but projected to hit 4,401.77 million in 2033.
That's more than doubling.
Yeah. With a strong CAGR of 6.32%, clearly where a huge chunk of the global growth is coming from.
That dynamism, It's absolutely central to the whole global picture. It means huge industrial development, urbanization, infrastructure projects, manufacturing booming,
All needing steel.
all needing steel,
Yeah.
and so needing graphite electrodes for those furnaces. And when you look at the individual countries, some really stand out.
India's growth projection looks massive. What's driving that kind of acceleration in places like India or even Singapore? Is it specific reforms, projects?
That's a great question because it's not just one story.
Yeah.
China, no surprise, leads in volume, growing to 1,310.41 million by 2033, steady 5.895% CAGR.
Oh.
Solid. But the acceleration story, that's elsewhere. Look at India. It's projected to jump from about $296 million in 2021 to over $656 million by 2033.
Wow.
That's a 7.112% CAGR, one of the highest globally, fueled by big government infrastructure spending, booming construction, expanding domestic manufacturing,
Makes sense.
and Singapore too, nearly doubling to $183.994 million by 2033. Strong 6.84% CAGR, likely its role as a high-tech manufacturing hub. And then Southeast Asia as a whole subregion, also significant growth, 6.678% CAGR, looking at $430.933 million by 2033. It just shows this broad trend of industrial capacity growing right across the region.
That's a really vivid picture of how these emerging economies are just reshaping demand.
Okay, from Asia Pacific, let's swing over to Europe, the established industrial heartland. Now, maybe not the explosive growth of some Asian markets, but still significant expansion here too. Europe's market went from just over $1 billion in 2021
1,006.42 million, yeah.
to a forecast of $1,923.43 million by 2033. That's a CAGR of 5.437%. Still very healthy. It is healthy, but Europe is definitely a more varied picture, more nuanced. Overall growth is steady, significant, yes. But the individual countries within Europe, they show quite different speeds for this key material. A mosaic, not a monolith. Exactly. Different national strategies, different industrial focuses playing out.
It's interesting. The report lumps some countries into rest of Europe, and that category actually shows the highest CGR on the continent. Why might that be? And what does the slower growth in, say, Germany or Spain tell us?
That's a sharp observation. That rest of Europe segment.
Okay.
It shows the highest CGR, 6.91%. Projected to grow to over $509 million by 2033. It suggests pretty robust, maybe targeted industrial activity in some of the smaller or less discussed European nations. Could be specific sector investments, maybe unique trade deals.
Okay.
Meanwhile, France is also doing well. Strong growth at 6.263% CGR, hitting $254 million or so by 2033.
Right.
But then you look at the giants like Germany. Big market, yes, but a more conservative 4.81% CGR, reaching about $275 million by 2033.
Slower pace.
And Spain, even slower. One of the lower CGRs in the region at 4.433%, growing to roughly $138 million.
Why the difference there?
Could be several factors. More mature industrial base already, maybe stricter environmental rules impacting heavy industry, perhaps a shift towards higher value, less material-heavy manufacturing, different paths.
Right. A real mix of momentum even within Europe. Okay, now let's head to South America, another region really picking up speed.
Yes, definitely one to watch.
Revenues were about $358 million in 2021.
$358.671 million.
Expected to grow to $783.7 million by 2033. That's a strong 6.913% CAGR.
That regional CAGR, it's really one of the highest globally. Suggests a big surge in industrial development, more manufacturing capacity coming online across the continent.
Foundational industries growing.
Absolutely. Driving up demand for essentials like these billets.
That high growth across the whole region is really notable. And Argentina looks like it's leading the pack, a 7.452% CAGR. What's fueling this broad industrial push, especially in Argentina?
Argentina is indeed leading, impressive 7.452% CAGR, heading towards $109 million by 2033.
Wow.
And that rest of South America category, also very strong, 7.265% CAGR, increasing to over $322 million.
So it's widespread.
It is. Key feature here,
Yeah.
driven by things like rising domestic demand, infrastructure investment, expanding commodity processing, especially steel and metals, vital for development there. Government policies fostering industry probably play a big part too.
Okay. Next up, the Middle East. The market there stood at $203.425 million in 2021, projected to reach $352.825 million in 2033. The CAGR is 4.501%.
Yeah, that's the lowest regional KGR we've discussed so far, so it indicates more modest growth. Still stable expansion, but definitely modest.
Not that accelerated industrialization we're seeing elsewhere.
Right, suggests maybe a more diversified economic strategy there, perhaps
Mm.
less reliant on heavy industry right now, or just a different pace for building things out.
A clear contrast to places like South America or parts of Asia. And even within the Middle East, there's variation. Saudi Arabia is the biggest market, but the UAE shows stronger growth. What does that tell us?
Exactly. Saudi Arabia, still the largest market, growing to about $108 million by 2033, but at that 4.171% CAGR, steady maybe reflects a focus on large long-term projects.
Right.
The UAE, though, showing stronger growth within the region, 5.66% CAGR, reaching about $37 million by 2033.
So what's driving the UAE's faster pace?
It could well be indicative of their really ambitious economic diversification plans, moving beyond just oil and gas, investing heavily in becoming manufacturing and trade hubs, and those hubs need these industrial inputs.
Got it. Okay, finally, we arrive at Africa, and this region, wow, it shows the fastest growth globally for graphite electrode billets.
Truly the standout region in terms of growth rate.
So it started smaller, comparatively, $101.713 million in 2021, but projected to surge to $290.814 million in 2033. That's backed by a really remarkable CAGR of 9.679%.
Yeah, almost double-digit annual growth over a decade. It's a standout figure. It points to significant accelerating industrialization across the continent, big investments happening in manufacturing infrastructure.
Driving demand for basic industrial materials.
Exactly. This kind of growth signifies a pretty fundamental economic transformation underway.
More than doubling in under a decade. Some parts nearly tripling. Phenomenal. And that rest of Africa category has the highest CAGR globally. What's behind this really widespread acceleration across Africa?
That segment, rest of Africa, yeah. Highest CAGR globally. An incredible 10.054%. Projected to hit $142 million by 2033.
Amazing.
That's a powerful signal. It shows broad-based industrial awakening, not just in the biggest economies.
Right.
But the major economies are strong too. Nigeria, 9.352% KGR, reaching over $55 million, likely driven by its huge population, efforts to diversify. And South Africa, also robust, 9.315% CIGR, climbing to nearly $93 million, reinforcing its role as an industrial hub.
So what are the drivers overall?
It's a mix. Infrastructure development, processing more resources locally, growing domestic consumption, and a really youthful, expanding workforce that needs industrial jobs. It's a powerful continent-wide shift.
Okay, so let's pull it all together. What does this mean for us trying to grasp the bigger picture of global industry? This deep dive, it really paints a clear, dynamic view of this market.
Yeah, in summary, what we're seeing is a market with a really strong upward path globally, going to hit over $10 billion by 2033. But the biggest takeaway, the momentum, the driving force for this growth, is increasingly coming from emerging markets. It's fundamentally shifting the balance of industrial power.
Right.
So specifically, Africa, South America, and parts of Asia-Pacific like India and Southeast Asia, they're leading the charge. Much higher CGRs, reflecting intense industrialization, infrastructure build-outs.
And the mature markets.
Mature markets in Europe and North America, they continue to grow steadily. Slower pace, yeah, but they provide that foundational stability for the whole market.
So highest growth region.
Highest regional growth belongs to Africa, that incredible 9.679% CAGR. Signals a real transformation.
And the most modest.
The Middle East, at 4.501% CAGR. Shows the most modest regional growth we looked at. Suggests maybe a different development focus, like we said.
It really hammers home how global industrial growth isn't just about the old guard anymore. It's dynamic, it's evolving. New regions are becoming powerful forces in these essential sectors, reshaping global manufacturing.
Absolutely.
So we've journeyed through the global landscape of the graphite electrode billets market, seen its current value, its exciting projections for the next 10 years or so.
And this dive really highlighted those diverse growth patterns across continents, across countries, showed where the real energy and investment is heading in this critical sector, and importantly, why.
Right, and as you, our listeners, reflect on these numbers, here's something to chew on. Given this really remarkable growth predicted for places like Africa and South America, what ripple effects could that have? Think about global supply chains, where raw materials come from, the whole competitive landscape for major industrial players over the next decade.
That's a great question. Think about how demand for this basic material could reshape everything. Where we get raw materials, where they get processed, Even the location of future manufacturing hubs
Could lead to a big rebalancing.
could lead to a significant rebalancing of global industrial capacity, maybe even geopolitical influence down the line.
Lots to think about. All the insights, all the figures we shared today, they come straight from that Graphite Electrode Billets market, Global and Regional Outlook 2033 report by Cognitive Market Research.
We hope this deep dive gave you a clearer, more informed view on this essential, if sometimes hidden, industry.
Definitely. Until next time, keep digging for those insights.